see to get here. And they didn't try, they brought enough of themselves that you could see them, you could talk to them, and you could feel them, and you could touch them, but at the same time they could move through solid matter. So, yeah, it was a quite an awakening experience for me to go where these guys are hanging out, and where they're watching us from, and they can see and hear everything we do, and they can be right in the room with you, right beside you. You wouldn't be able to see them. In the state that they're in, but they can see and hear everything we do, so they know everything about us. They speak English. They didn't have to use mind. They didn't communicate with their mental telepathy or anything like that. They talked with their mouths, and one of them had a hard time because her mouth really wasn't made to make the syllables we do. So she had a cat's mouth, and she was struggling to make certain words. And me and the other one were almost laughing at her inept attempt at making certain sounds. It was like somebody with a speech impediment, but at the same time, she had enough intelligence to know that if she had struggled trying to make a word, she would make a different word instead, and she had a knowledge of our language well enough to do that. So they knew English quite well, and they didn't have any trouble speaking it. In fact, some of the words they used, after the conversation, I had to go look up on Google because I didn't know what they were talking about. So they're more inept at using our language than I am, and I've lived here my whole life and spoke it my whole life, which is kind of sad, but the truth. But anyway, I got a buddy here. I want him to say hi right now. His name is Justice Stewart. He just walked in. You want to say hi, Justin?
Hi.
So what's going on, man? Today we're going to talk about the Bet Spear out in Florida. Have you ever heard anything about the Bet Spear?
No.
Neither has Teresa, and she just lives a few miles from it. Anyway, let me get you up to speed on this Bet Spear.
Yeah, tell us about the person that just talked on the radio live with us, because is he in a human form? Is he human?
Yeah, his name is Justice Stewart.
Does he live is he an American?
Yeah, he's an American, and he lives. He just moved in next door to me over there, and he's helping a lady over there who's disabled, and so he's like her living. He's her living helper. So, and so he wanted to come over here and listen to the show. And I thought, since he's sitting here, we might as well let him say hello.
No, anybody that wants to help you, Ronnie. I mean, I'm trying to, for the first year, you got to be with us a year. We're training you to be a co-host, we hope, in radio, but I know it's scary for a lot of people to come on. And you did bring a few people on, and I love your wife. She's one of the nicest ladies I've ever talked to on radio. But, just tell people it's a little scary at first, and they can go back and hear their voice and what they said right here on TJ Marsh ET Radio. Now, because I was in the UFO business and I was an investigator and, I was in and out of uniform, I take both sides of investigation. But, being a journalist, too, I like meeting people as a human, and I just want to know, because we were just talking about people that come and go, and I've met extraterrestrials that can talk, and I've met some that use ESP with me. And they were in a human form while they were here, but they didn't stick around long in my life. So I've seen them leave in orbs and ships, and that's not for everybody. But what about your person there? Does he have any clue of anything off-planet, maybe in his dreams? Can we ask him those things, or is he willing to participate?
I don't think. Justin, have you ever seen a UFO? Oh, he said he's seen a UFO.
Why don't you let him talk? You bring him over to your
tell us about what you saw, Justin. This would be a first for me because I haven't heard this story.
Well, I really didn't see it, but me and an old friend of mine out in Rising Star, we'd be sitting out at night, and there would be this light that would just appear, and he would take his flashlight and flash it, and I said, well, you're flashing a plane. That's kind of dangerous. And he's like, no, it's a UFO, and so he continued to flash it, and then they'd just like flash him back. And after he did that a couple of times, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go home. But then I started feeling strange when I got home and just like passed out on the floor when I walked in the door.
You saw did you have a different feeling, or did it change you anyway, or because it opens your mind. First of all, it's a little fearful because it changes you, but give us any idea of how you're growing through this change. Would you call it a difference of opinion or opening up your whole brain thinking, or because in the matrix here, in the world that's been created for us by collegiates in our educational system, we usually only know what we're taught in books or in school or maybe churches, but until we get out and experience life, it's like Ronnie said, you think all these people are crazy like me that talk this stuff, but that's why tonight is about Ace Folklife, and you ain't going to believe this, but you're the perfect person to be on Ronnie's show on Saturday in Texas, because we're trying to awake people that there's more to life than what we actually experience just in our basic world reality. But give us any idea if you're waking up to more than what you were taught, if you know what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to a degree, yeah. Well, at first I didn't know what to think, because, like I said, I just, went, me and my friend were out there, I started smoking, and he started flashing his flashlight up there, and they flash back, and then they disappear and come back, and we do it again. Well, after about an hour of that and smoking some cigarettes and stuff, I went home, and when I walked in the door, my wife wasn't home at the time, and I walked in the door and just started feeling dizzy head all of a sudden, and just collapsed on the floor, and wasn't really found until the next day when my wife came home, and I was just there on the floor just asleep, and I never have slept that hard or that deep before, because when I finally woke up, I felt so rested, like I hadn't slept in like 6 months, but now I felt like fully energized and rested again.
Wow. Well, did you feel different, or like, wow, this really opened my soul or my mind up, or did your brain feel different? Was there any, we call it emotional intelligence. They help us wake up at various levels, and educationally and with the scholars, we're just waking up to the fact that we can be called ourselves alienologists, ufologists, and phenomenologists. And we're looking at neuroscience and how much we really don't know about humans and how our energy works among other beings out there in space. But we are beginning to study that, and to get ourselves in space and to accept a lot of the past history. That's why today with Ace Folklife, we'll call it Folklife or folklore until we can prove it. But it's hard to prove anything to another human if it's just something that happened to you, usually with no witnesses, but it changes you. We call it the awakening in the ascension age. Everything is about ascension, meaning to ascend and rise up off the plane and evolve. So when did this happen, and can you give us an idea of your age? It's like you were chosen to start awakening maybe before others in your family, so you may be if you talk about it, people may think you're a little wacky like the rest of us. They call us tinfoil hat, but we don't put tinfoil on our heads that I know of. But now you're like one of us because you've had an experience. They found you and they're waking you up in your life. But do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, I've been about, I guess, 36 or so, and I'm not really sure what to make of it yet. I mean, I haven't really thought about it until now. I mean, I thought about it a little bit off and on, but not really that much until now. And so, I guess I'd like to say it did open my eyes that there's something else, that there's other things out there. But I'm really not sure yet how I really felt about it or anything yet.
Well, that's good. At least you're open to the fact that something did happen you can't explain. And that's the mystery. That's the magical mystery tour of our esoterics and our metaphysicians. I train mystics, oracles, psychics, sages, seers, and guides to help people on the planet. And I did this for years, and then I was in the government, and I wore a uniform. So I got to do studies of these beings and the way other beings live off planet. But I'm one of the very few fortunate, and sometimes it's hard for me to believe, but I did write some books out there on UFOs and extraterrestrials, and then working with my husband in uniform. He was Army and I was Navy. But we actually did investigations. President Reagan, President Carter both saw one. And, they only have a certain level of clearance in the intelligence community, but I had above all the presidential level. And it's called a Royal 14, and it had to be above that. Even the president had to sign off in order to find out some of the stuff we did, and they'd have to try to get all the bugs out of all the intelligence community trying to listen in. Nowadays, they don't have to bug anything like they used to in the embassies and the White House and the president's office. Because, we've got AT&T and all communications devices are all going through the same cables and wires and satellites that everything is recorded now. And it doesn't matter here. But did you see the movie Matrix? We say it's a lot like waking up in the Matrix, that all of a sudden, even if it's not like the Matrix, we're in bottles somewhere or we're created somewhere in another reality we can't see. It's a way of saying we're interdimensionals, but we're waking up to the fact that we're not just humans walking around. We're born, we live, and we die, if that makes any sense. So, I hope you'll stay with Ronny and help him get this show going, and you can invite people over, if you want to. But I'm glad you feel like something's happening to you, and Ronny's always looking for help to help me. And anyway, Tommy Hawksblood from Hawaii may join us today, Ronny, but I'm going to mute and anything that you're willing to say, because it'll be here recorded. Where people won't believe it or not, we don't care. It's just what we're feeling like while we're going through this change with all the other people.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, some of the stuff, this ufology stuff I kind of got dragged into, I've got pretty deep on this one aspect, where the whole world is looking for proof. I understand people say, you had an encounter, you've seen some UFO, you met an alien. Prove it. I just want some proof. I understand. I want some proof. But you have to understand, when they pull me out of my when they pull my consciousness out of my living body for a conversation, how do you prove that? How am I going to prove that? I mean, I can't even grab anything and pick it up in this place that they had me. So it's all I have is my story, and you can either believe it or you can not believe it. And some of the people out there just say, you're full of crap. You're just making this up for attention. Well, I work in the oil field, and the great thing about my job is I don't have to see anyone. It's just me and my truck and oil tanks. And so I don't have a whole lot of reactions with people, and that's one of the things I like about my job is I'm not a real people person. I like being alone. I love my alone time. And I don't like being in a crowd. I'm the type of person, I walk into a convenience store and the line's too long, I walk out. Yeah, I'm not the type of person who goes out and seeks attention, And to be a UFO experiencer, you have to realize that some of these people are so mean and so cruel and so hateful that if you're going to come out and you're going to tell your story, you had better be ready. And that's one of the things I like to communicate to people who've had UFO and alien experiences is if it's good to talk about it, but if you want to go public on it, get ready, because there are some haters out there, and you're fixing to meet them up close and personal, and they're going to cut you down. They're going to cut down your genetic fortitude. They're going to ask for proof that you can't supply, and they're going to make all sorts of rumors and lies up about you. And I've had haters go as far as calling my employer and telling them that they should fire me because I see aliens and I work in the oil field and I do dangerous work and I'm too insane to have a job. So I've had people that actually contact my employer and try to get them to fire me. I mean, that's how far they'll go in their hatred of you. And I've had them share my internet stuff online. I've had them cut down my wife and kids. I mean, yeah, it is not always a pleasant experience out here when you're telling your story to the world in public. And so
wow.